You've become everyone's safe place, but no one's home. They come to you when things fall apart. They trust your clarity, your calm, your counsel, because you see what others miss. You hear what people don't say. You know the ache behind the smile before it ever shows. You are the one who understands, the one who stays steady, the one who doesn't flinch. But when the conversation ends, when the doors close and the laughter fades, you're left in a silence no one else seems to hear. Because for all the people who lean on you, you don't lean on anyone. Not really. You became the mirror, reflecting what others needed to see, helping them face what they couldn't name. But here's the part no one tells you. Mirrors don't get held. They get looked into and then left behind. Carl Jung once wrote, "Loneliness does not come from having no people around, but from being unable to communicate the things that seem important to you. And what you carry feels untranslatable. So you smile, you perform ease. You let others call your silence strength, because correcting them would require explaining a truth even you barely admit. You're not detached, you're just unheld. You chose to hide inside insight. You chose observation over expression, because somewhere along the way you learned that vulnerability made people leave. Or worse, made them stay, but look at you differently. So you offered value instead, guidance, space, answers. You became a lighthouse in their fog, but no one thought to ask if you had a storm of your own. You're not invisible because people don't care. You're invisible because you taught them not to look. And now the very brilliance that draws people in has become the barrier that keeps them out. You speak their language perfectly, but they never learned yours. Antonio Porcia once wrote, "Near me, nothing but distances." And maybe that's what hurts the most. Not that people can't reach you, but that part of you stopped believing they ever would. There's a boy in a story you might have forgotten. His name is Kai. One winter, a shard of cursed glass slides into his heart and another into his eye. From that moment on, the world becomes fractured. He sees only flaws, he feels only cold, and when the Snow Queen comes, offering beauty and silence, he follows her into a palace made of ice. He spends his days there, rearranging frozen shards into impossible puzzles, complex, brilliant, endless. But the real tragedy isn't that Kai forgets the world, it's that he forgets how to feel. You are not Kai, but maybe you know what it's like to choose brilliance over warmth, to choose distance over disappointment, to solve everything except the ache inside you. Because you weren't always this detached. You remember, somewhere in your history, something shattered, trust, safety, innocence. And instead of letting yourself break, you sharpened, you organized the pain. You turned your wounds into pattern recognition. You made sense of everything so you wouldn't have to feel anything. And the world applauded you for it. They called you wise, measured, composed. No one saw that insight had become your shield, that your mind was working overtime to protect a heart that no longer felt safe to be touched. Carl Jung warned, intellectualism is a common cover-up for fear of direct experience. But this wasn't just fear, this was survival. You needed that control, you needed the puzzle. Because the alternative, asking for closeness, risking rejection, was a language you had forgotten how to speak. So you built your palace, you kept it clean, unbreakable, quiet, and still the silence grew loud. The same brilliance that once gave you power started to make you ache. Not because it stopped working, but because it worked too well. You started solving other people's patterns while forgetting the shape of your own loneliness. You became fluent in other people's pain and foreign in your own. And when someone offered closeness, you mistrusted it. When someone stayed, you waited for them to leave. Because that's what the cold does. It doesn't just numb the pain, it numbs the hope. But remember what broke Kai's spell. It wasn't logic, it wasn't mastery. It was a girl who refused to forget him. It was warmth, it was love. It was the tears of someone who still believed his heart could thaw. And maybe the ice inside you didn't form all at once. But it can melt the same way, not with force, but with something soft enough to be trusted. You don't need to shatter, you just need to remember. You weren't born cold, you were just brilliant enough to survive without warmth, until now. You've been in rooms where everyone laughed and you wondered if you were the only one pretending. You've been loved. On paper, respected, trusted, admired, but never quite felt. There's a difference, and you know it. People lean on you, tell you their stories, call you their safe space, and you listen fully. You track every detail, every pause, every contradiction. They feel understood, seen, heard, but you leave those moments with an emptiness that doesn't have a name, because you were there for them. And no one ever asks what it costs you to be so available, so intuitive, so endlessly composed. You've built a life on being the one who doesn't need much, the one who's fine on their own. But I'm fine is the most practiced lie you've ever told. And the longer you live in that lie, the more you start to wonder if maybe it's true, that maybe your needs are too much, that maybe no one could really hold the full weight of your story, that maybe it's safer to stay on the island than to risk building a bridge no one walks across. Fernando Pessoa once wrote, "Solitude desolates me, company oppresses me." That's the paradox. When you're alone, you ache for connection. When you're with others, you ache to escape. You smile when you're expected to. You mirror their joy, you offer presence, insight, safety, and yet inside you're bracing. For the moment you're misunderstood, for the moment you're too much, for the moment you let something slip and someone finally sees what you're hiding, not because you fear judgment, but because you fear being seen and still feeling unmet. So you retreat, not physically but emotionally. You start answering less, offering less, revealing less, until your relationships become performances of closeness, while your heart watches from the wings. And still they call you strong. They don't see the version of you that sits in a quiet room, surrounded by the echoes of conversations you carried but never joined. They don't see the part of you that longs, achingly, for someone to say, "You don't have to be the strong one today." They only see the lighthouse, and lighthouses don't call for help. They just keep shining, even as the rocks beneath them erode. It doesn't come with thunder, no grand collapse, no cinematic crisis. Just a moment, small, almost forgettable. Maybe it's something someone says. Maybe it's something they don't. Maybe it's nothing at all, just the weight of one more day where you feel completely unknown. And then it hits you, not like a wave, but like a whisper, like your own voice, saying something you never gave yourself permission to feel. I'm not okay. You've worn the mask so well that even you started to believe it. The calm, the reason, the insight. But now you see the cracks. You see how your brilliance became a hiding place, how your silence became a cage, how your distance became grief in slow motion. You remember the version of you that used to speak without calculating, feel without filtering, love without testing every gesture for sincerity. And you realize that person is still in there, buried beneath the persona you built to survive. Carl Jung wrote, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And this is the darkness you've been avoiding. Not rage, not despair, longing to be known without performing, longing to be held without explanation, longing to feel, really feel, without editing yourself for someone else's comfort. There's a story about Cassandra. She was given the gift of prophecy, but cursed so that no one would believe her. She saw what was coming. She warned everyone, but they dismissed her, called her mad, locked her away. You carry that same curse. You see people, you warn them, you guide them, but no one sees you. They believe your insight, but not your pain. So you stopped speaking truth for yourself. You spoke it only for others, and now you wonder if anyone could recognize the sound of your real voice, the one beneath the calm, beneath the answers, beneath the beautiful illusion of being just fine. But something's shifting. You're no longer satisfied being the one who never needs, the one who never asks, the one who always holds the weight, but never gets to put it down. You're ready, terrified but ready to admit that your strength has become your silence, and your silence has become your suffering. This isn't weakness, this is the beginning of truth. You don't have to shatter. You just have to stop hiding. And maybe, just maybe, someone's been waiting for you to finally let them in. You don't remember the first time you froze, you just remember the quiet that followed, the shift from feeling to calculating, from wanting to watching, from being open to being safe, but safety became silence, and silence became solitude. And somewhere in that solitude, you convinced yourself that needing nothing was the highest form of strength. But strength isn't the absence of need, it's the willingness to risk being known. Because no matter how sharp your insight, no matter how high your standards or how deep your understanding, it will never feel the same as being held without needing to explain why you needed it. That's the ache beneath the insight, isn't it? Not just to be understood, but to be known without performing, without proving, without translating yourself into a version that others find easier to love. You've spent so long refining the mask that you forgot your face was never a flaw. And now something is cracking. Not violently, not loudly, just a quiet shift, a slow melt. Like ice meeting light, like breath on glass, like the moment a mirror fogs, not from distance, but from nearness. There's a Japanese saying, the snow falls, each flake in its appropriate place. Maybe your coldness was never failure. Maybe it was precision, adaptation, a brilliant mind's way of surviving chaos, but winter was never meant to last forever. The truth is, the longer you hold back the warmth, the more it starts to feel like punishment, not for others, for yourself, because brilliance without closeness is a hunger that never ends. And perception without intimacy becomes a loop that never breaks. You begin to long, quietly maybe, but you long. For a voice that doesn't analyze you but hears you, for a presence that doesn't solve you but stays. And longing is where the thaw begins, not with confession, not with grand gestures, but with the decision to stop hiding just a little, to say something real, to pause before the deflection, to reach knowing you might not be caught. That's what warmth requires, not perfection, just courage. The courage to say, I've been strong for a long time and I'm tired. I've been cold for a long time and I want to feel again. And maybe, just maybe, someone has been waiting to meet you where the ice ends, where the silence breaks, where your insight softens just enough to let someone see you, not your brilliance, but your ache, and to answer it. You were never meant to stay behind the glass. You were never meant to watch life through windows of insight. Always understanding, always observing, but never in it. There's a difference between being clear and being close, between seeing others and letting yourself be seen, between understanding love and receiving it. And maybe for a long time you believed you had to choose. You believed that being emotionally safe meant being emotionally alone. That closeness required compromise. That being held meant being weakened. But now you know. The truth is simpler and harder. It's this. You can only be known if you're willing to stop hiding. You can only be loved if you stop performing clarity and allow mess. You can only melt if you stop apologizing for being cold. You thought your brilliance was your gift. It is, but it was never meant to be your mask. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Not the mirror, not the mask, not the safe place for everyone else, but you, in your ache, in your hope, in your full, fragile, burning humanity." The cold empath doesn't stay cold because they want to. They stay cold because they were once warm and no one stayed, because they gave and it wasn't enough, because they showed their soul and someone called it too much, so they retreated into understanding. And now the courage isn't in analyzing the pain, it's in risking love again, it's in lowering the drawbridge, in taking off the armor, in saying, I'm here, Not as the mirror, not as the lighthouse, but as me. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be certain. You only need to be honest. Because somewhere someone is tired of performing too. Someone else is aching behind their own eyes. Someone else has read the room 1,000 times and still felt invisible. And when you open, not perform, not explain, but open, you become the thing you always were afraid didn't exist. A home, not just for others, but for yourself. You don't lose your insight by being vulnerable. You don't lose your edge by being soft. You don't stop being the mirror. But now you become a window too, and someone someday will see through that window and stay. They won't be impressed by your distance. They'll be moved by your courage, and for the first time in a long time, you'll stop analyzing the moment and start living in it. You'll feel the warmth come back, not all at once, but enough. Enough to believe that clarity was never the point. Connection was, and it still is. You can let the ice melt now. You're already whole, and you're not alone anymore. Not here, not now, not ever again.